Good morning, Ram Nation. We are back with another edition of DNVR Rams Live. As always, I am your host, Justin Michael. Tough night in Canvas Stadium. Colorado State falls 28-9 to CU. Showed very little offensively. Just a kind of a classic Ram life moment, honestly. I mean, you have the largest CSU home crowd in history. Over 40,000 fans. It was an awesome atmosphere from pregame even. I mean, surrounding the stadium, it felt like what they envisioned when they built Canvas Stadium. You know, it felt like big time college football. It was a really, really cool atmosphere on campus. The student section, I've never seen it that full an hour before campus, or an hour before kickoff, excuse me. And then to come out and completely underwhelm the way that CSU did in this one was gut-wrenching. It was incredibly disheartening in so many ways. And, you know, first of all, congrats to CU. Talk your shit. You deserve it. Absolutely dominated CSU, really on both sides of the ball in this one. Nothing like the matchup we saw in Boulder last year. I mean, just really got outplayed, got outcoached. We make a really poorly coached program. We made them look competent last night. And, you know, that's the funny thing. Like, they clearly outplayed us, but they're not well coached. I mean, they're throwing in the final 2 minutes, the game's out of hand. They had to call timeouts, you know, on a punt situation because you have too many players on the field. Like, it's not like it's a tight ship over there. And man, we just looked absolutely terrible in this one. Untimely penalties, no rhythm offensively, the same lapses in coverage at times that have hurt this program for 3 years now. This was brutal, and Ram fans deserve so much more than what they got in this one. Look, I've been very openly a supporter of Jay Norvell and this staff, and I do think he is a phenomenal recruiter. I think he is a program builder. I think some of the game management stuff in some of these big games has left a lot to be desired. And I don't know what this team's offensive identity is right now, because I genuinely do believe they held some stuff back the first couple of weeks, at least based on some of the stuff stylistically that we saw offensively throughout camp in the scrimmage. I'm not the only one. I mean, ask Kevin Lytle, ask Ryan Green. The way the offense looked in some of those scrimmages is nothing from what it looks like right now. And I don't get it. I understand why you want to lean on the ground game, especially when it's working. But now it seems like they can't get the passing offense in rhythm. And that's really alarming because we're a quarter of the way through the regular season now, and we've essentially yet to see a game where the passing offense was truly consistently in sync. Now, they made some plays against UNC, and that was encouraging. But, I mean, just for 4 quarters, it was pretty rough in this one. And, I mean, I obviously really like the guy. I'm a big fan of Jay Norvell and all of these coaches. I think they're good dudes. You know, I appreciate the access that they give me, and I do think they've shown growth in certain areas. But if you don't win these games that matter, when you just completely lay an egg in the biggest game of the season, it's pretty impossible to defend. And, you know, the pressure is on. There was already pressure coming into this season because of how last year played out. I said it a million times, you know, when we were previewing the year. Had you won 7 games last year and made a bowl, I think it completely changed the context and the amount of pressure that was on this staff coming into the year. But because, in particularly, the way you blew the game in Boulder last year, then did it multiple times in conference play, you know, blew those games against UNLV and Hawaii and missed out on an opportunity to, you know, reach the postseason, that they had to take advantage this year. You have 7 home games. Both of your major rivals are at home. And I understand that sitting here at 1-2 was always a realistic possibility, but to just completely basically lay an egg against Texas and CU now, really not an encouraging sign in year 3 in a program. And you're kind of at a crossroads now as a program, as a team, both in the big picture sense and just like looking at the scope of the rest of this season. I with 7 home games, with how the rest of the schedule looks, I think you have to win 7 games. I think you probably have to be Air Force and Wyoming at this point to really have it feel like a satisfying season. Neither of those teams look very good at the moment, which is encouraging, although you could certainly say, we're one to throw shade at the moment. But yeah, they're at a crossroads, and these next couple of weeks really are going to dictate, like what the tone of this year is going to be, what the vibe of the rest of this season is going to be. And I'm sick of it, guys. It feels like 10 years of the same old thing, just feels like we're in Groundhog Day. And some things change, but death taxes and the Rams completely underwhelming when the lights are brightest. Like, there are just some inevitabilities in life. And it was really a bummer because it was an incredible year. Felt like you had all this momentum coming off of the Pac-12 release. And honestly, that's another factor that you have to consider when it comes to, the scope of things. I really don't like to be a guy that comes on this show, every time they lose and be like, oh man, hot seat warning. It's just not how I roll. And even still, like, I would prefer that this team figures it out under Norvell, because I think he's a good dude. I think they've got a lot of talent. And I think obviously if you restart, that's basically putting you in another 2-3 year window of having to start over, probably losing a bunch of players again. I mean, that's a whole process. At the same time, I can't tell the fans that this is acceptable when it's not. The way that they looked in this game was just, they looked underprepared. They looked sloppy. The penalties were just really, really frustrating. They were untimely. I talked about that so much leading into this game, more so than the actual penalty yardage. You can see it. CU finished with more penalty yardage than CSU did, but CSU's penalties were so much more backbreaking. They were at least 3 times. It was positioned to be 3rd and long, 3rd and 12 plus, and you give them a first down on a penalty, a roughing the passer, a holding. I mean, it was, if it wasn't one thing, it was another. And you have to turn this thing around pretty quickly, because with an admin change that's happened, just looking at the situation realistically, like, I'm not sitting here being like, they're going to fire him. But you have a staff that obviously is very aggressively pushing forward for the future of CSU athletics. They expect more. They're going to demand more. And, you've already had an AD change, since Norvell was hired. Him and Weber, I think, obviously, because they worked together with the green and gold guard, like, it's not like it was a completely new relationship, but still, that puts some more pressure on things. ADs tend to want their guys. And now with the Pac-12 move looming, like, if you don't figure it out this year, that puts a lot of pressure on winning next year, because you don't want to go into the Pac-12, I don't think, with the first year coach. You also don't really want to go in with a lame coach either. And because of that, like, it just puts so much more pressure on this season. And there's always a pressure to win. But this was the biggest game of the year. Like, just being real, first Fort Collins in 90, or first Rocky Mountain showdown in Fort Collins since 96. Like, this was a major statement opportunity. You're playing on prime time, CBS, like a massive exposure window, and they laid an egg. And I don't know what needs to change, but something does. John in the Toyota chat wants to know, Justin, we like Jay and he's a good guy, but does Jay need to give up the play calling duties? Is it not working? I don't know. I don't know if that would fix things or not, to be honest with you. I have a hard time seeing a guy that was a longtime OC that made his way up in this business by calling plays, giving them up, just being realistic. Like, I don't foresee that happening. But I don't know. Maybe you shake things up. Maybe you do give Mummy a shot to call some plays. I don't know. But clearly the offensive identity is a mystery right now. And, as John said, the penalties took the air out of the stadium. All of them resulted in touchdowns down the line. Like, they were just all so backbreaking. And the lack of discipline in a game like this, with the amount of veterans that you have on the roster and a staff that has continuity in year 3, was disappointing. And I like these guys a lot. I do. But it can't be what it is right now. I'm going to get into more takeaways. We're going to keep this going. I appreciate everybody that's locked in with us. I appreciate you guys in the Toyota chat. I did want to comment real quick, just because I commented on Twitter X yesterday about the viral clips from the preseason that surfaced for the first time or whatever this week. I think they aired on TV back in the preseason, but they made the rounds obviously online this week. Romy Bean of CBS shared them. She did not initially, when she posted them, add the context that they were from the preseason. Everybody thought that they were from this week. I get it. It lacked context. I didn't love that. And I told her that when I saw her yesterday. She knows I've got a lot of love for her. That said, the amount of people that took it as some like grand conspiracy, that it was this really malicious act on her end, I don't know about that. I mean, she's a buff. Is she trying to probably fuel her side up a little bit? Yeah, probably. Maybe even if it's like in the back of her mind, but it's really not that deep. She's a good person, guys, and everybody needs to chill out. And frankly, whether those clips were from the preseason or this week, those guys knew they were being interviewed. They knew it was on the record. They knew that that was going to come out. So you got to back it up, And when you say the things that the leaders on this team said on the record, very publicly, you got to back it up a lot more than what CSU did in this game. And I understand why folks were annoyed, but Romy Bean is not the reason that CSU lost this game. Everybody get off her back. It really is not that deep, guys. I promise you. If I thought it was some big malicious thing, I would be the first to say it. Like, I know her well. I know her as a person. I know what her intent was. And I know that I post things that I don't always, sometimes I look back on it and be like, oh man, should have added that. That was lacking context in this ways. I think at times, everybody just rushes to villainize. And I thought it was bad the way that those clips circulated without the proper context. But at the same time, I also think it's fair to say that those are veteran players. They knew what they were doing. They knew they were on camera. And if you're going to talk like that, you sure as shit better back it up. And the Rams did not. All right. I'm gonna keep this rolling. I do want to shout out our friends at Game Time. Game Time has made it easier than ever to buy tickets last minute. I imagine there's going to be a lot of CSU tickets for sale on Game Time next week. What's awesome with their new feature, Game Time Picks, that makes getting tickets to your favorite live events even easier. Game Time has such a wide variety. At times, it can be a little bit overwhelming. They've just got so many options for you. Game Time Picks, it takes out all the fluff to show you only the best of the best, the incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste your time searching through thousands of tickets trying to compare. What Game Time does is it's looking at the price point, the quality of the seat, and it's giving you the best option on the table right there. What's awesome about Game Time, they've got all-in pricing, so you're not going to get gouged with a bunch of fees down the line. I don't know about you, but that's like the most frustrating process to me of buying tickets these days. You look at it, it's listed for $25 between service fees, transaction fees. You ordered on a Friday evening fees. It ends up being like a $62 ticket. It's ridiculous. The fees end up being as much as the original cost. Now with Game Time, the price you see, that's the price you're going to pay. You can get a panoramic view from your seat before you buy, so you can make sure you're not getting an obstructed view. They've got Game Time ticket coverage. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the app. Create an account. Use the code DNVR for $20 off your first purchase. Terms to apply. Again, create an account. Redeem that code DNVR for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. I also want to talk to you about Premier Members Credit Union. They're not a bank, which means they do things a little bit differently. They're trying to save you money. They're trying to help you make those money moves that you want to make. They have great customer service. They put you first with higher savings, interest, lower loan rates. It's an organization that serves the community and the Colorado community in particular. With PMCU, you get local branches, friendly tellers, and the tools you need to save smarter, like the new high-yield savings account. Earn 5% APY on your first $2,000 with the reverse tier money market. When you become a new member at PMCU, you get $200. You just have to open a checking account, sign up for e-statements. It's that easy. This will be your best money move yet. Head to becomepremier.com to find out more. All right. Shout out to all you in the Toyota chat rocking with us. I appreciate you. We'll get to as many comments as I can. My man Yaya on the sticks producing the show. He'll get the ones up that are worth getting to. There's just so many of them. It's hard to keep up sometimes. But I definitely appreciate you guys. Oh, by the way, this is completely random. There was a gentleman that I ran into leaving the stadium last night who said he was a big fan. I took a picture with him. I was on the phone. If you saw my tweet, I had a kind of a minor family emergency. Everything's going to be fine. Not worth diving into. But I was stressed out. I was trying to figure out what was going on. He was trying to, say how much he loves the show, and I felt really bad. I felt like I didn't give him the proper moment that he deserved, because I really do appreciate all you guys. The last thing I'm trying to do is act like some big shot. But it was just chaos, man. So I really appreciate all of you in the DNVR Rams community. So many times, you guys come up and you're like, oh, I love the show. And it's wild to me. It means the world to me. So I'm sorry I did not get your name, but I hope I get an opportunity to talk with you down the line. And I very much appreciate the support. So again, thank you. All right. We're at a crossroads, guys. You've got some winnable games coming up. You got to find some juice here, especially on the offensive side. That did not look like the group that went into Boulder and, punched first last year. That did not look even like, the team we saw against San Diego State last year. If you want to look at some like tight losses like UNLV, they didn't look like they had the same like swagger to them. And I don't really know how you quantify that, but it seems like they're lost, especially on the offensive side of the ball. The O-line, they're running the ball with fairly good consistency at the moment. But even yesterday, there were stretches, especially after Justin Marshall went down for a little bit. It was good to see him back in that second half. I don't understand how you're not able to get these receivers in the mix a little bit more. Where's the crossers we saw all last season? Where's some of the easy comeback throws to just get in rhythm? We saw a lot of that on CU side. Like they were just taking the space that, CSU was giving them. And I thought we were giving them way too much space, at times, when they need 7 yards and we're freaking 12 yards off the receiver. They're probably just going to take that 8 you're giving them. That would be my guess. But I don't know what we're doing right now on the offensive side of the ball. I think they have a lot of talent, and I think Braden has shown greatness at times, like true brilliance. And I've heard a lot of people that know a lot more about the quarterback position than me say very similar things. He's got the arm talent. He also has these just incredibly reckless moments that are really frustrating for a guy that at this point has, started a substantial amount of games. That interception, cross body deep in your own territory on second down, you can't do it. You can't do that. I think that the receivers didn't do a lot of help for him. There were some drops. The guys weren't particularly getting open. That's another issue. The receivers have got to get open, to help the quarterback out. I think they could do some things schematically to help him out too. But they the turnovers in this game were backbreaking, absolutely backbreaking. You start the game, you get a couple of stops and you hold them to a field goal attempt, but just offensively, you do almost nothing in that first half. You get a field goal in the first quarter, but there was like a 6-drive stretch between the second and third quarter where the results were like punt, missed field goal, interception, fumble, interception. That's not winning football. And it's just really confusing considering the amount of athleticism and experience you have on this offense. I don't know what you do to fix it, to be frank, because I'm not sure. I'm not sure if you go to like that more tempo that we saw at times last year, maybe the helmet communication slowing things down, that has not helped the passing offense. I could see that, especially Braden, like you look back at that Boise game, there were times like where he really gets in a rhythm and tempo. The problem with that is when you play that way a lot, it can at times put your defense in a really bad spot. And, I thought the defense played hard in this one. If you give up less than 30 points in this game, that's giving your team a chance. They also just consistently shot themselves in the foot with the penalties. And between the pass interference and the roughing the passer and unnecessary roughness, and there were a couple other ones that maybe, I'm a big Andrew Lorich fan. I think he's got a pretty bright future. Probably lucky he didn't get tossed from that game. That was targeting. That was targeting, and it was a selfish penalty in a bad spot. And they had a couple of those. I'm not trying to single out him. He was just one of the guys that came to mind. They had a ton of those in this game that were just James Mitchell had a face mask on 3rd and long. They got to clean it up in so many different areas, because while they flash, like you have these moments in the run game where they flash, it's just not consistent enough. And the issues that they have are the same issues they had last year. They still have far too many untimely penalties. They still have these lapses in cover. Like, what are you going to zero coverage for with the amount of speed that they have? I don't know. I don't know where you go from here. And I know that you guys listen to this show, and I wish I could give you more answers, but I honestly have, I think I have more questions than answers with this team at this point. And that's really disheartening. CU stars showed up in a major way, so you got to give them credit. Travis Hunter, he probably is the best college football player I've ever seen in person. Just being realistic, that's not me trying to be like, it's okay, CSU, they've got this star, and normally and that's true. They do have just an absolute freak, an anomaly of a human being on their team. That's the best college football player that has ever suited up for CU or CSU. So all the props to Travis Hunter. I'm a Broncos fan. They suck. I would love for him to end up in the orange and blue. Shedeur made some really big throws in this one as well. He still holds on to the ball a little too long for me, but he's got an incredible arm. His touch is amazing, especially on the deep balls. 4 touchdown passes, 0 picks. I mean, he had a great game. He has really played well against CSU in his 2 games. And, I'm not trying to come on here and just be like a full-on hater. I think that program has plenty of issues, and I think they're going to be exposed come Big 12 time, and I think a lot of the same fans that are jumping to clown us who were, sulking a week ago post Nebraska will go right back to being the victims, once they have to play Kansas State and, Utah and some of these legit Big 12 teams. But the reality is as much as CU has sucked over the last 20 years, CSU has quite frankly sucked even more, and they have owned us. So we have to sit there and we have to take it, knowing that it's not that good of a program. But that's how it works. When you win, you get bragging rights. You get to talk, and you get to puff your chest out, and you get to mock the other side, and the other side has to take it. And that's where we're at yet again for seemingly the 100th time in the last decade. I'm tired of it. I know all of you guys are. I desperately want to see this program be what it could be, because I think when you see the crowd in a game like this, when you see the atmosphere, you realize what could be possible if you had a winning product. People are dying to support a winning football team in Fort Collins. This team has talent too, and I'm really disappointed with where we're at 3 weeks into the season now. I don't want to get too dramatic here, because I recognize that you played Texas, who I think is the best team in the country this year. You played UNC. You should have beat them, and you did. You lost to CU, who you were a touchdown underdog to. So, like, if you want to look at it from that standpoint, you beat the one team you should have, and you lost to the 2 teams that Vegas thinks that you should have lost to. But that's pretty hollow. I mean, you've got to be able to pull these types of games at home. I don't care if they're a bigger school or not. I see some of the coping, like they've got 5 times the resource. They do. They have all of that, but they won the game, and we didn't. Once again, the defense, they they lack speed across the board. Really missing some of the guys that they lost last year. Obviously, you can really feel what it's like without Mo out there. They do not get enough pressure on the quarterback. Gabe Kershke, I think, is the only guy in the rotation that has consistently generated any type of pressure on the quarterback now. I think he's going to be really good. I think some of these guys, Lorich and McDowell, and some of these guys have an opportunity to be quite good, and especially down the line. But right now, they're not generating enough pressure, especially in the interior and pass situations. Just feels like quarterback has a really clean pocket, really clear vision, and it's putting the secondary in a tough spot, and you're seeing them get torched at times because of it. It all works together. I don't want to throw one unit under the bus in particular, because I think it's all of them kind of finding ways to screw it up at certain points, and then just not really seeing enough cohesion. Special teams wasn't particularly stellar in this one. Patty Turner had a really good game. If I had to do a player of the game, it'd probably be him. But I mean, you had a couple of really questionable punt return decisions from Levon Brown, where it's just let the ball go over your head. It's going to be a touchback. Instead, you catch it, put the offense in a tough spot where you're backed up deep, and then compound the issue by throwing a really bad interception just moments later. I mean, it was just death by a million paper cuts in this one. I don't think that they had a ton of the one interception deep in your own territory, that was pretty glaring, but it was just a lot of small things that added up over time, and you can't do that in a game like this. You've got to basically play mistake-free football, and you finish -3 in the turnover margin, 95 yards in penalties. CU actually had over 100 yards in penalties, but more than the penalties than penalty yardage themselves. It was the time of those penalties, and 3rd and long, 4th down in some instances. And you went 4 of 14 on 3rd down in this game. That's not going to get it done. They actually held CU pretty well on 3rd down for a while. I think they were one of their first 5 or 6. But then I think CU closed 4 of 6 or 7 on 3rd down. I mean, they couldn't stay on the field offensively. They couldn't get off the field defensively. They had too many turnovers. That's not a winning recipe. It's pretty simple. Football's not rocket science, as complicated as we tend to make it at times. I thought the turning point in this game was, you could say it was the first interception or the fumble. Either way, both of those were backbreaking. You have really bad interception, immediately give up a touchdown, but then you drive down the field and it's feeling like, all right, well, maybe they can respond a little bit. There's still some time here. And Keegan Hollis fumbles at the 3-yard line trying to get extra yards. I love the heart, but sometimes as a back, you got to know when to go down, especially if they're holding you up and trying to rip at the ball there. And it's just backbreaking. The times of the bad plays more so than the bad plays themselves. And that's a hard thing to quantify, and I've tried to talk about that before. It feels like the best teams, they're always going to still make mistakes, but they're not in the worst possible moments. They don't seem to be so backbreaking. CU fumbled in this game, but wasn't when they were at the 3-yard line, and wasn't when they desperately needed a score. So it's just little things that add up over time. And with a team with this much experience, it's kind of frustrating that it's still happening. I'm going to give some final thoughts here in just a second. Shout out to Shady Rays. Get ready for the season ahead with quality shades built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered with premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. They're an independent sunglass company offering a world-class product rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. They've got durable frames, crystal clear optics, making them the perfect choice for all outdoor adventures. I wear Shady Rays all the time when I'm walking the dog, chilling poolside. They're really perfect. They're especially nice for me because I obviously am blind as a bat. Some sunglasses, they can make it so it's difficult for me to see at all. What's nice about Shady Rays is with their polarized lens, it eliminates that glare, but I don't feel like I'm walking in a pitch dark room. You can have peace of mind knowing that if you happen to break your Shady Rays, lost and broken replacements, they'll get that taken care for you. And exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out the best deal of the season. Head to shadyrays.com. Use that code DNVR for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. I also want to shout out Coors Light, who encourages you to choose a chill mindset. Very timely read, this one. Life can be overwhelming. It's easy to get worked up. I certainly felt worked up at times last night watching it. In those moments, it's easy to have it overcome you. It's easy to just be a bummer to be around. It's easy to start just getting real pissed off, and then you're no fun to be around. But life, it's no good that way. You don't want to be in that state of mind. And honestly, man, as much as we love this, it is a game. And in those moments, it's important to take a deep breath, to be mindful of where your headspace is at. Just be chill. It's really that simple. Once you choose a chill mindset, maybe you kick back, you crack open an ice cold Coors Light. When the mountains turn blue, it's as cold as the Rockies. Coors Light is cold lagered, cold filtered, and cold packaged for a smooth finish. Coors Light is mountain cold refreshment, crisp and refreshing as the Colorado Rockies. Make the most out of the time you choose to chill. Choose Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instacart by going to CoorsLight.com/DNVR. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. All right. Oh, man. I don't know if it's harder to be a Broncos fan or a CSU alum right now. Really not looking forward to watching this game this afternoon. Couple of individuals, helmet stickers. Shout out to Patty the Batty, Patty Turner. He's been really good this year. He's been solid. He's not giving up any returns. Had 3 inside the 20 in the first half. He gave CSU an opportunity when the offense was struggling. Was an ally to the defense as well. Helmet sticker for Avery Morrow, who had the UC Health moment of the game with his 62-yard run. Set up a rushing touchdown. At least the Rams scored a touchdown. I mean, silver lining, I guess. Probably a touchdown for him if anybody other than Travis Hunter is running him down from behind. Jamari Person, he had a breakout game. That's encouraging to see. Second straight week you've had a sophomore wide receiver that's really flashed. I would continue to emphasize getting the ball to some of these younger guys. Jordan Ross, Jamari Person. They're trying to get Goody the ball. He had a chance actually where he was open, just didn't make the play where he beat Hunter in the first or second quarter. Maybe you get some of these younger backs in the mix. They got a lot of talent. But if, guys like Jamari Person and Caleb Goody are making plays, get them on the field. If the vets are not, then you make adjustments. Obviously, we hope Torrey Horton is okay. It was very admirable that he went out there and played, especially if you would have saw how poorly he was moving around earlier in the week, but did not play at all in that second half. Not shocking, especially with the break, like if the groin tightened up. So really surprised he was back there returning punts. I understand that he's a game breaker back there, but still, you see what the offense is when he's not out there. You might have to get somebody else back there. Boom Jock, he led the team in tackles. We'll give him a helmet sticker, I suppose. 12 total for him. He had half a TFL and the forced fumble, which was recovered by Chase Wilson. Jack Howell, 12 total in this one as well. Not enough in any facet of the game. Really, really disappointing given what was at stake, given how big this game was, how much it meant to the CSU community. And the pressure's on. Like I said, I've got more questions than answers, I feel like, at the moment right now. And until you start winning games that matter, you can't be surprised when people tune out altogether, when they stop caring about this program. You've had these awesome atmospheres. Well, that's going to change pretty quickly if you keep playing like this in the games that matter. And more than anything, just the lack of rivalry success. And not even like, it's not that they're losing the rivalry games. I mean, that sucks. Don't get me wrong. It's that it feels like at times they're embarrassing themselves in the rivalry games. I mean, when you look at how poorly the last 2 games in Laramie have gone, I actually thought they played pretty tough against Wyoming in Fort Collins in 2022. And if they had Clay Millen healthy in that one, they probably win. But I mean, just so consistently, it feels like these rivalry games are some of CSU's worst performances. And I don't know if it's like putting too much emphasis on the games and it's causing guys to crumble. I don't know what it is. I really don't, because it feels systemic at this point. It's multiple staffs, styles, players. They've all changed. All of that's different, but the result ends up still being the same. And I don't know. I do think at times there are certain things in sports that have an inevitability to them, and I guess until they don't. I mean, the Detroit Lions were the best example of this forever, and now they might be one of the better teams in the NFL. But it just feels like it feels like we're doomed, or like, like I said, like Groundhog Day. We just wake up destined to live this crappy nightmare of a situation every single day. No matter what we do, we end up right back where we were the day before. And I don't know. I know that a lot of you like that I try and be optimistic, and I don't think the season's over. I do want to be clear there. You've got a lot of favorable matchups coming up. I will say the matchup against Nevada, that looks a lot tougher than you thought going in. The matchup against New Mexico, even. I mean, you look at what Devin Dampier is doing. He is a stud. Rough game. Shout out to the Buffs. Big win for all of you. Shout out to all you dorks, though, in the Dion Colts. I'm sure you'll be bitching 2 weeks from now. Always proud to be. Much love, y'all. Peace.
We all silly like the mayor.